Let me be clear. Your daily life on adventure maxing is fundamentally an entirely different ball game than whatever you're up to right now. People are afraid to have a micro adventure. I think that we are conditioned mentally to believe that, okay, what is this? Notification on my phone. We are mentally conditioned to believe that every adventure must be some grand journey across continents. Maybe you go to the airport and you go off road and you're in some vehicle or blah 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 blah. It doesn't need to be that way. An adventure could be going to get a new sandwich, make some small talk with the folks at this sandwich store you've never been to. An adventure could be walking down a new block of a street you've never been on and looking into the homes, not in a creepy way, but more so in a perusing, house hunting way, and thinking, I wonder what stories came from there. You see a nice roof deck and you say, wow, that would be a great patio to host some friends and discuss. You know what I'm saying? Micro adventures are really the attainable kind for anybody, because these are the little moments of every day that we all have. Our day is full of little moments. It's kind of what a day is, right? There's a great poem that evokes a deep sense of awe and wonder in me. It goes, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. And then the poem continues. But the fun part about that, the intriguing part, is you have this man who is just going from A to B, not doing anything too exciting. And he finds himself in this little patch of woods, a mysterious patch, and it's snowing lightly, like the opening scene of a movie, or perhaps the closing scene. And he's just there pondering this snow. And he's with his horse, because my little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. And you just got this picture of this guy parked in some snowy woods on like a freezing, dark, cold winter night. His horse is like, dude, what are we doing out here? What are we thinking right now? And yet it evokes such an image in mind. It just is. You can picture that guy very clearly, just kind of pondering the woods, pondering his life. Maybe he's not even in a good mood. Maybe it's not necessarily even a good thing that's going on in his brain. But this is the essence of adventure, are these little moments. All too often we get cooped up in our homes, and you get this stale sense, it's almost depressive, isn't it? This stale sense where you're just glued on your couch too long, or you're lamping around the house and there's no reason to leave the house, except your mind gets stale. You start doubting, you start thinking these negative things. Maybe I can't accomplish my goals, maybe I'm not on the right path, whatever. But you're just stagnant. You just aren't micro adventuring, seeing the world, because those little things keep you in the moment. What if at that exact instant you left the house, you got in your car, and you drove to some natural scenic spot? By me, I can go to some swampy land. It's not necessarily beautiful unless you appreciate swampy land, but it's perfect for pondering. Trails where no one walks, and you have this kind of sandy dust on the ground, and you have this kind of placid water. You might have gators in there, and you can just kind of walk and see these gnarly plants, and you get bit by maybe a couple too many mosquitoes when you go to a place like that, but boy, does it clear the head more rapidly, more effectively than anything you can do while sitting at home. Any form of meditation, any form of whatever you do is shake the the doubting thoughts out of your head. I'll tell you what, going on a micro adventure beats that to smithereens, beats that to a pulp. Go to the beach, look at the waves. People appreciate doing this on sunny days. I even appreciate doing it on rainy days. Going back to the first example, I once found myself in a position where I had to make a major decision on my career and on my business. Um, a business that I later shut down because it wasn't profitable because I wasn't that good at it. So it's all right. But um, I went out to a long trail. It runs adjacent to a canal. I'd seen the trail before marked on Google Maps, and so I pulled into the small parking lot. I get out there. There's nobody, and this is literally just a long trail through the sand. Eventually, perhaps a mile or close to a mile, or perhaps even further than a mile down the road, or the walking path, excuse me, because there's no vehicles on this road. There was a small pavilion, um, big enough to fit one picnic table under it, and it had one of those thatched roofs. It was a secure, but it was a thatched roof. And once I got out there to that apex, to that deepest point, it started pouring rain. It was pouring buckets of rain. It was as rainy as I've ever seen it in my life. I had recently gotten new shoes as well, and I was wearing them because I didn't expect rain in the forecast. And I'm sitting there first, I'm pondering, like, A, what the hell did I just do? But B, like, do I wait this out? You know, what are my options here? And yet the sense of calm I experienced despite being in such an objectively shitty situation um, was profound. That's a moment I will forever remember. Um, and eventually I decided, whatever, I'm just going to walk back. I had no umbrella. I might have brought, I was always, I had enough foresight, because this has happened to me before, to bring a rain jacket, despite not thinking it was going to rain, but I ruined those shoes. They had to dry for like a week afterwards. I was just hoofing it back 1 mile or so through the muck in the pouring rain. And so these are the moments that I think that 90% of people out there are like, wow, that sounds horrible. Why would you ever subject yourself to that ordeal? I would much rather stay cozy. I'd much rather stay comfortable in my home. You miss the point of the adventure. You miss the point of the quest. We seek out these little moments in our lives. They seek these moments through thrill, or through vice, or through all other name of different versions of chasing that feeling of novelty and excitement and adventure. But they've never tried just literally adventure maxing their lives. Ever. Never tried it. You can adventure max even in a local parking lot. I posted on Twitter the other day, talk a little bit about adventure maxing on there. I posted on Twitter the other day that I was adventure maxing at a gas station, and the one of the comments on it was like, how did you adventure max at like a gas station? It was meant in good spirit, but that's like, I just filled up my car with gas, and I just like studied my surroundings. I just studied the placement of the sign. I studied the bushes around the station. Was there a lot of litter in them, or were they well kept? I studied the tire pump refill station. I studied the glint of the sun off the off the windows of the passing cars. Life's an adventure, but it's really about appreciating and soaking in the little moments that make it about an adventure. Just yesterday, I was coming home from the gym. Um, they do this massive boat show around here each year, and so the way that I like to drive home was entirely blocked off, and I'd forgotten about that. I knew it beforehand. If you asked me if there was like a test, say, hey Sam, is the road closed? The answer was yes, but I forgot about this in a moment because I was just coming off a little pump. I'm not big, but I'm fit though, So I'm driving back. I'm like, motherfucker, like, I'm gonna have to go all the way around. I end up going over a bridge, going through a school zone, going another lane, going the other way. I took the most circuitous route possible. It probably did save me time in the end. At the time, I was a little bit like, what did I do this for? But in retrospect, these are the little adventures and the little moments, dude. I encourage you, do you feel bound and strapped by life? If you own a car, get out there and just drive somewhere. Plot a quest. Plot somewhere on a map and just go for it and explore it and soak it all in. If you don't own a car, maybe you can hop on a bus or local public transit system. Maybe you can use your 2 legs that God gave you and you can walk somewhere new and different. Or if you own a bike, hell, I bought a good bike. It was a fine bike. It was a functional bike on Facebook Marketplace a couple of years ago. And eventually, that was like $30. One time I could kind of cut and go zigzag anywhere as I so pleased. So these little adventures are all around you. Let's say you work at the office all day. Take a moment outside of work and just stand in the parking lot outside, or stand outside the building, or do something a little unexpected. I know you want to go home. You know you want to go home, but those little moments of just clarity and vision, and a complete lack of forethought and purpose as far as like what you were hoping to accomplish, that's the nature of the adventure. Because nothing's an adventure when there's an expectation. They wouldn't have written the Odyssey if Odysseus had conquered Troy and then he just made it home. He expected to make it home. There's no journey, there's no adventure in there. So when your day blends into a routine, a repetitive routine of, I wake up in the morning, I prepare myself breakfast. You could even have the healthiest, sexiest morning routine on the planet. But once it becomes a truly ingrained routine and you have a full expectation for what's going to take place each and every day, each and every moment, man, you lose the joy out of it, right? A kid, two huge advantages of a kid, is you have this novelty of each experience in your life. And so everything is new and exciting, even when it's actually something that's kind of boring or mundane. Like, how many playgrounds have you just, you see one now and you see like a rinky-dink little slide and like a little ladder to get up there. And you're like, wow, that playground looks like it sucks. But there's some kids who probably use that playground who are like, I love this place, because it's like the first one they've ever seen. They experience with that novelty and that joy. They don't know any better. They're just doing it, baby. And also, you think about your childhood and how it seemed so long, how it seemed like it encompassed so many years. And then you look at the past X amount of years of your life. Geez, 10 years ago, dude, I was like almost done with high school, and that time is compressed like that. All years in college and all the years afterwards working have just been compressed into this almost an instant memory in my mind, even though obviously a lot of stuff has happened. But when you're a kid, you experience everything with a newness, and that newness tricks the brain in a way. It's like a sleight of hand. It's like, you ever seen this trick where he's pulling his thumb, or he's pulling his finger off? It's like a sleight of hand, right? Because you bend the thumb, put it here, you do that. But anyways, almost by tricking yourself into thinking everything is novel, the brain files away that experience as though like everything's a new novel experience. And so it feels like you actually lived more. It feels like you actually did more in time. And so time does not feel so compressed. And so when people say that the years fly by and they get quicker, obviously the time, there's not less time in a year, but it's your perception of having lived X amount of years, and another year is a smaller percentage of that time now. But the other half of it is, as you kind of grow into a routine and you work in your career for 40 years, well, geez, man, like, if you're doing pretty much the same thing, your brain doesn't need to store all that information. Last Tuesday at work was the same as a year ago Tuesday at work, more or less. Maybe some different people were around, or it was a different deal you were working on or something, but geez, not much really changed. And so there's not that novelty in the brain. But when I ask you about one of these unique moments, it's there, it's in there, you remember it, These, for whatever reason, little moments are stored so exquisitely in the brain. My first job was in an office park in Maryland. One of these real depressing places that you kind of like think of and you like people will like make fun of America when they like point to one of these office parks. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so copy and paste. There's a couple different buildings around, all owned by the larger umbrella of the company I worked for. Um, there was like all these row homes, like town row homes, right next to each other. That they were nice places. Like visually, if you saw one of them, you'd be like, "This is nice," but they were all the same, and so it was almost like Truman Show, like there was this Chick-fil-A that me and some of my friends would drive to for lunch, and we would just be driving through these like literal like Truman Show houses. It was almost goofy and silly, and then it would spit you out into this farm field, old America, and then there was a Chick-fil-A there. Very strange. But those are the little things I remember. I couldn't tell you much of, I could tell you the general themes. It'd be like summarizing a TV show. I could tell you the themes of what I was actually up to at the office there during different, months and seasons. But what I actually remember are, you know, long walks around the neighborhood. One time in a hilarious way that was kind of out of my control, failed to hit a bonus sales, right? Failed to hit a bonus because, well, one of the deals basically couldn't close by 4 p.m. It had to close after 4 p.m. because of something on the client's end. So I lose a lot of money to me at the time. Um, I was so pissed. I was so pissed. I was fuming, and I just didn't know what to do. And I, I went downstairs. I walked out of the building. It was winter. It was like January, and I just like, I walked all the way down this road, and I came back, and I was recentered. I had just, you know, I didn't lose money, but I failed to make, a certain chunk of it that I wanted. That would have been nice. Just make money's good, right? But without even realizing it, I micro-adventured. I micro-adventured, by the way, around every inch of that office park in town. Most people who work that company, hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, they probably don't know the half of what goes on in that little town. They don't know the little nuances of each parking lot and the fastest way to get to the Bridgestone Tire and the efficient route to get to the Harris Teeter, good grocery store, the fastest route to get to the Harris Teeter Starbucks. Most of them probably drive around there instead of actually pumping the legs when you're sitting at a desk all day. Could you be any lamer? Could you be any more closed mentally? It's unbelievable. A lot of this lack of adventure, by the way, gets completely translated into the works of those around us. When we see all these identical buildings, architecture, you know, copy paste suburbs, yeah, I guess they're doing it like at scale to save money. But these people, the designers are so in their own rut, and they lack such vision that they just are literally copy and pasting neighborhoods on top of each other. It's like furiously at the keyboard, like copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. It's unbelievable. We need to live in a world of vibrance. But unless, if you're a designer watching this video, know that I'm on to you and you should design some cooler shit. But if you're not a designer watching this video, you just need to create that adventure in the places you can within your routine. I don't know what that looks like. I don't even care what that looks like. But just parse the little moments, dude. You don't even have to go anywhere different. Parse the little moments. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. You will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. You can just stand on a corner and just appreciate it. Just actually soak in the life of it for a second. We're all in such a hustle bustle to get from point A to point B that we don't have these little moments of clarity, reflection, and just like doing. We don't have these little moments of just kind of existing without some larger purpose, right? We have so much. There's so much on our plates nowadays that it really does you get caught up in the efficiency of it. You get caught up in the discipline of it. You get caught up in the chase. I got to do this, and then I got to do that, and then I got to do that, and then I got to do that. You actually don't. Yeah, you do in a sense, right? We all have responsibilities. Don't shirk them, but we don't ever take this time to appreciate just that joy, that like little moment. I swear, every office job I've had like that little refuge, even where even when I'm working long hours, I have that little place that I can mentally adventure to and escape to. I used to go to this church, different place to work, but I'd walk a couple blocks to this church, and they, on certain hours, at certain days, they had this little, you know, like a solo like chapel. It was very cool. And so I'd go in there and I'd pray. I just, yeah, I would clear my thoughts, but I'd go on this little adventure, this like pious journey of the monk, even in the midst of a busy sales cycle or something like that. Like you need to have moments for that journey, for that quest, for that little cultivation of lore, dude. You think they wrote ancient orbs and or wrote ancient scrolls, and they'd talk about orbs and all this, like, dude, that information came from somewhere. Those stories, that lore, it's not just manifested. You are the manifester. You're the one who actually has to show up and do it, who has to cultivate your own lore, like you're growing a field, like you're growing a crop. You know what I'm saying?